Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Hubitat Live. I am Patrick Stuart, I'm your host tonight, and with me are Bruce Ravenel and Mike Maxwell. Say hi, guys.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Let's see if it'll switch over. Let's see if we can see Bruce here for a second.
No, I'm hiding.
Oh, you're hiding, okay.
I'm hiding digitally. My favorite way to hang out is in digital form.
You see, Bruce is running around at like 2,500 kelvins.
That's right.
He's over there at 6K, and
yeah,
we're
doing some light jokes tonight. Not heavy jokes, just some light jokes. Boy, that's bad. That was really bad. I'm sorry. I apologize, folks.
That's bad, Patrick.
Hey, thanks for watching live here on YouTube. The live chat is the place where you can ask any questions, and at the end of the show, we'll set aside some time to answer as many questions as we can. But let's get started. On tonight's show, Bruce is going to show off Rule Machine 4.0. And Mike and I are going to get into an argument about Lutron dimmers. But first, let's talk about platform version 2.1.2. This was just released. Let me see if I can switch to this camera. I am horrible at this. By the way, I have to just take a quick moment to send a shout out to my daughter, who usually is running the switcher. She's not feeling good tonight, so hopefully you'll feel better. But what I want to do is talk about the stuff that we released in 2.1.2. Of course, the most exciting part of this, which is what Bruce is going to talk about here very shortly, is Rule Machine 4. But we also added some neat drivers there, Mike. We added, let me get that driver over there. We added support for RGB Genie devices. Mike, you've got that you can just show real quick?
Yep, we currently support this one.
Okay.
And there's more coming, like, ooh, and ooh.
We also added support for the Synope, I hope I'm saying that right, product line. That's a bunch of thermostats and a bunch of other stuff that you worked on there.
Yeah, we basically have all of that product line now.
Yeah, and the other thing that, a quick change, and I know this might, it's more of a patch, but I thought I'd mention it. If you're on a cloud dashboard and you see that green checkbox up in the top right-hand corner, when you're on a cloud dashboard, you can actually tap that, and that will refresh the entire page, basically like a preload, or a reload, I should say. It's handy if you've saved to your home screen on the mobile app or something like that, and you might have stale data. There was no way to refresh something that you've saved to your home screen on Android or app. One other thing I just want to mention real briefly, the Android app, if you're one of our Android users and you go into the Play Store and you join our public beta channel, we've got some significant improvements there. We've got improved loading times. We're actually caching the data now. Some improvements to the geofence, and then automatic dashboard switching. So if you're on your local network, it will load the dashboard menu or your dashboard locally. And if you change out to cloud, it'll switch over automatically. It'll just refresh the dashboard and back and forth. So again, if you have any questions or anything that you want us to talk about, feel free to post them in the YouTube chat. We'll answer them at the end of the show. But without further ado, I want to switch over and I want to see what Bruce has to talk about when it comes to Rule Machine 4. Now, Bruce, Rule Machine 4 is an amazing thing. Oh, hang on, I switched to the wrong camera. This is the cornerstone of Hubitat Elevation. With this latest platform update, you rolled out version 4. There are some key changes that you want to go over. So Bruce, I'm going to just say, take it away.
Yeah, okay, cool. Well, this is only partially about Rule 4, although I'll show you some things with it. So here I'm going to bring up my screen, hopefully. All right, here we go. Now, there's a little story about something that happened over the last 2 or 3 days. Somebody in the community innocently asked a question, one of our British users, and it had to do with making TTS tell what time it is right now. And he was having some problem with the message you can see on the screen. The time is percent now percent. That should give you the current time. And if I run this little thing,
the time is 6:04 p.m.
Voila, it gave the time. Now, being gullible, I didn't really investigate this too well when he told me that it didn't work right and that it was like leaving off the O, so it would have said the time is 6:04 or something. And I responded and I gave him 6 quick little actions in Rule Machine that would give him another way to get the time into a message. And I played with it on my computer and got the thing to work and hit the button and it said the time. I thought, oh, that was really cool. And I replied and moved on doing other things. And I was out walking the dog, I think yesterday morning, and I started thinking about it. And I didn't really do that completely. There are some things that are funky that, like what about midnight? What about 12:15 a.m.? And this is not quite so simple as meets the eye. And so I started working on the 6 little actions I gave him, and I started filling in the blanks, and I ended up with this. Now this, I got to tell you, doing time in software is a royal pain in the arse. It's just messy no matter what you do. There's nothing nice about time. Avoid doing anything with time in software to the extent you possibly can. That's my advice. So we'll just walk through this real quick. So I stuffed the current hour in a variable. I stuffed the current minute. I stuffed PM in another one. Then I check to see if it's before noon, and I make that say AM instead. I put a blank in echo. You'll see why in a minute. And then having thought about this while walking the dog, I realized, oh, there's all these special cases. I got to deal with all these special cases. So the first one is, what if it's 0 hour, 0 minute? It's midnight. So let's just say the time is midnight. And then, well, what about noon? And I do the same thing. It's 12 and 0. The time is noon. And then, well, there's yet another one. What if it's right on the hour? Then you wouldn't say it's 1:00 p.m. You'd say 1 o'clock. So I put that special case in. And that's where I come up with my echo. I stuffed the word O into echo. Oh, actually, I guess I didn't even bother there. I just said the time is 1 o'clock, AM or PM. Great. And then I finally got to the original part of what I had shared, which was if it's after 12, subtract 12. If it's 0, which is essentially between midnight and 1 a.m., make it say 12. Stuff the O in case it's before 10 after, and then say the thing out loud. Okay, so this I think will work. We'll just go try it. Is it going to work? Oh, this is Murphy's demo principle at work.
It is, yeah.
I should check the logs. It's probably throwing an error or something.
This is more proof that Bruce not only does his development on his hub, but on
Elaborate little rule to tell you what time it is got me thinking about variables, about global variables and the inefficiency thereof. Global variables are actually somewhat inefficient because they're kept by the parent, by Rule Machine. And every time an app like this goes off and stuffs something in a global variable or checks a value of a global variable, it's got to load the parent app and get the value and then blah, blah, blah. And it uses up a lot of CPU time doing all this. So I thought, well, that's crazy. Why don't we do something smarter than that? Ta-da. So this morning's invention and the sneak peek this week is local variables.
But of course, we can't talk about those, right?
What? They look very similar to global variables, except they're local. They run only in this rule, and they're very useful for anything that you need to use a variable for that's contained within a single rule. If you need a variable that spans multiple rules, you use a global variable. If you need a variable that's only used within a single rule, then you can use a local one. And it's clever enough so that if you had a global variable named alpha and you create a local one named alpha, you're going to get the local one, not the global one. So you got to be sort of mindful about how you go about naming variables, but the local variables will always be used if they exist. Local variables are useful everywhere in Rule Machine except one context, and that one context is in a trigger event. Well, two actually, because a wait event also. If you were to try to use a variable in a trigger event, we'll grab here, I want to put a variable in here, it's going to have to be a global one, not a local one. The reason being that it's got to be notified from outside this rule. Something outside this rule has to touch it, and that can only happen with a global variable. So you can only use global variables for wait events and trigger events, but otherwise you can use local variables anywhere that you can use a global variable, and they work exactly the same way. So that's it for Rule 4.0 for tonight, and I hope this will come out in the next release in 2.1.3. Whenever we get around to releasing that, you'll get local variables.
Awesome, Bruce. Thanks. Hey, would you mind just briefly talking about one of the big changes in Rule Machine 4? The fact that there's no more triggers or rules or anything, that you've just got that, one rule that can do everything.
Well, I watch and listen to what the problems that people have with Rule Machine, that it's 3.5 years old. And so I've got 3.5 years of experience with people using it and getting their feedback. And one thing that was consistent was that they didn't understand the concept of a logical rule being true or false, and that truth changing, and something happens when it changes, something doesn't happen when it doesn't change, etc. All of that was confusing to people, and that got more confusing when you had concepts like triggers and rules and triggered rules, like which is which. And I've seen lots of users come up with screwy things that made no sense, using a triggered rule when they didn't need to. So it became very clear that this structure, which I had come up with on a weekend 3.5 years ago, was confusing to people. And as I thought about that confusion, and as Rule Machine progressed and the UI got cleaner and cleaned up in ways, it became clear that what you really needed to do was to make it very simple. Something fires a rule, and then you got logic if you want to use it. Conditional actions. If this and this or this, do that. If this or that and the other, do something else. People understand that. They didn't understand rules and triggered rules. So now Rule Machine is as simple as it can get. There are things that trigger a rule, and then everything else is actions. And those actions, you can have as complex a logic in them as you want. It's basically, ironically somewhat, it's turned into a tiny little programming language in the actions. You have variables, you can do math, you can do loops, you can do if then else if, else if, else. You can stack all these things together. You can do anything you want in the actions. And I truly believe that this is actually the way most people think about logic and making decisions and doing things conditionally. So that was what motivated this progression of Rule Machine, was to try to make it easier for people.
I will be honest though, Bruce, it has taken me a while to make the transition. I was so used to Boolean logic. It's now, what? So for me, it was the opposite.
Yeah, it is a change. If you were steeped in the old Rule Machine, this is quite a departure.
Well, and
if
you've
never seen either one of them, I think this is much easier to learn.
Yeah, and with the release of 2.12, you actually have the choice between Rule Machine 3 and a version 4 rule. So you can choose.
Oh, and that brings something else up I want to talk about real quickly. Let me go here to Rule Machine, the parent, and pull that up for you. I guess I've got to reshare my screen here. Hang on one sec. Okay, let's pull up Rule Machine. So in Rule Machine, this was also newly introduced in 2.1 2.2 was this ability to clone a rule. We can take any rule we've got and we can make a carbon copy of it. And if I make a carbon copy of this rule, it says garage door lights clone to garage doors lights copy. And I believe that the garage door lights was a rule 3.0 rule. And just to refresh your recollection a little bit, a 3.0 rule, you can have rules, triggers, triggered rules, actions, and schedules. There's 5 different flavors. Now we're going to retire from the parent at some point in the not distant future, not immediately, but this is going to go away. Being able to create a new 3.0 rule will go away from this UI. It'll just say create a new rule, and these old ones won't be there. Well, for those of you who want to continue to use Rule 3.0 and make new rules forever and ever, you can do the following. You could make mother clones, make a baby rule with nothing in it, save it, make a trigger with nothing in it, make a triggered rule and save it. Actually, the only one you really probably need is rule, because triggers are trivial in 4.0. Every rule is a triggered rule in 4.0, but you could make these two, say, make a baby rule, save it in your list of rules, and call it mother clone rule and mother clone triggered rule. Then in the future, if you ever want to create a Rule 3.0 rule, all you got to do is clone that mother and then fill it in and create whatever rule you want with you. You'll have a permanent supply of Rule 3.0 rules and triggered rules by doing that trick.
That's awesome. Can you clone rules before 3.0?
You can clone any rule, sure.
So if you've got an old Rule 2.2 or 2.5, you could clone that too. Not that you'd want to.
Do that too.
But yeah.
Not that there's any reason to.
All right, thanks, Bruce. Wow, Rule Machine just keeps getting better and better. It's amazing. All right, Mike, you ready to rumble here? We're gonna have a little. We're gonna put the bunny away for the week, and we wanted to talk about something a little different. Mike and I are both big Lutron cassette fans, and Bruce, you've got Radio Raw 2 stuff, right? And so we all really like Lutron configurations, but we're all using it in a completely different way. So I figure we'd share first kind of how we're using our Lutron integrations here, and then see if we can have a little discussion, and maybe a little sharing and little conversation here. So I'll start with my setup. I've got 3 SmartBridge Pros, and for our Lutron integration, you do need at least the SmartBridge Pro or a Radio Raw 2 system. And the reason I have that, and the reason we're talking about this,
or Raw 2 Select.
Raw 2, right? Yes, correct. The Lutron just announced this week, or actually they announced it a couple weeks ago, in between our shows, but they just rolled it out a few days ago, where the SmartBridge Pros are now upgraded to support up to 75 devices, I believe. So that's up from 50. So I'm one of those people that bought early. I have actually 4 SmartBridge Pros, but I use 3 in my production environment, and I've got a bunch of shades, I've got a bunch of dimmers, I've got a bunch of switches, and more importantly, I've got a bunch of Pico remotes, these types of things. I love these on these little stands. They're awesome. And so I use Lutron throughout my house. Of course, I also have Zigbee and Z-Wave meshes, but the reason I had the configuration the way it was because I needed to spread out. My house is spread out horizontally, so I just put a bridge in each of the areas, put another repeater there, and the combination worked out well with about 30 or so devices per hub, or bridge, I should say. JD Roberts, I'm sorry. Yeah, so that's my configuration. Mine's pretty straightforward. I do all the automation. I should say I do, but actually my wife does. Big shout out to my wife. She goes in there and writes scenes for the shades and sets them up the way she wants it. We got hot today, so she's like, "Oh, I don't have a scene for like close all the shades." So she was in there writing that. It was pretty neat. But Mike, you chose to do something kind of completely different.
Yeah, the Caseta dimmers have a, we'll just call it a feature that I don't really appreciate. And that feature is that they are incapable of remembering the last level they were set to. So no matter how you turn them on, they will always bump up to 100% and then go down to the level that you commanded them to. I don't like that personally. So when I did my house, I don't have any Caseta switches or dimmers anywhere in my house. I have blinds, 13 or 14 Lutron shades, and about 60 picos. This is this is typically what you see in one of my rooms, right? These are just picos. In this case, this is the one that I pulled right off the wall in my office, and the one on the, well, I'm not sure.
Literally, there's a hole right behind your head where that was sitting, right?
Yeah, right there. Yep.
Right there. That's the dedication of the show, Mike. He just rips it right off the wall.
Yeah. So, every room has got these depending on what they have. I've got picos that have the fan engraving and they run the fans in the room. And what lives behind virtually every one of those is an Aeon Micro, either a dimmer or a switch. You can't get these anymore, but one of the reasons why I got them is I had them in a previous house, and I got these for I bought probably 60 of them and got them for like $20 a piece. So that ended up being a very economical solution to my setup. Now, I've posted about this in the community before, and everybody in the community goes, "Oh no, what do you do when the power's out?" Well, you know what? The lights don't work anyway. Oh well, what do you? It's like, what do you mean? What do you do when the power's out? There's nothing that works. Give me a break. Well, what do you do when the hub crashes? Well, for me, right, I go figure out what the hell it is and we fix it so it doesn't happen to you guys. But at the end of the day, we don't. These basically cover up a hole in the wall. For the most part, we don't actually use any of these. 99% of the lights are automated in the house, and you don't have to do anything. So if you want to override a level or whatever, you come up to this thing and play away at it. But that's it. And I've got 2 Lutron bridges, only because I hit the 50 limit before. I think with the way my house is set up, I could probably have gotten away with 1, but I do have 2. I have 3 hubs in production, and all 3 of them have the Lutron integration. So, everything that I've brought in on all 3 of those is available for automations on any of the hubs that I've got. So that's kind of my setup.
I know you're not your normal fire and vinegar and all that fun stuff, but what I want to discuss here is there's a big difference. You mentioned it, and it's a big deal to me because I actually like this feature and you hate it. The Caseta dimmers turn on to 100%. And Bruce, you've got some strong opinions about it too.
Okay, Patrick. So you walk in your bathroom in the middle of the light, you're happy that your eyes get freaking blasted out?
No,
yeah.
I put a motion sensor and I set it to 1%.
Patrick's the guy that every freaking light in his house, he's got 6,000 Kelvin bulbs in his house. Okay, there is no concept of anything below 6,000 K. I mean, look at his studio. It's a studio, but
I like it bright in my house. That is true. But no, Mike,
even at night.
This is the point. If you turn on a light switch, you just said it. You don't touch your light switches. You use automation. I use automation. And you can use automation to dim it to 1% or 10% or whatever you want.
Yeah, but it blasts up to 100 before you can catch it, Patrick.
No,
That's
it doesn't.
So freaking annoying. Yeah, they do.
If you do set level and you go to 10%, it goes right to 10%.
No, they don't.
Yeah, they do.
So in my house, when I moved in here, there was a classic Radio Raw system. This was before Radio Raw 2. And one of the things which I ended up doing, I had a SmartThings hub, was I created an integration for classic Radio Raw to work with SmartThings. And that integration was pretty funky. It involved using an Arduino and a SmartThings Thing Shield, which was a fancy way of getting a 9600 baud connection to this stupid system. And everything it was like, flashback to the 70s with character-oriented command line interface. It was just awful. And it was very limited, but I could make it do its basic thing. I could basically get a dimmer to work in SmartThings using a virtual dimmer that would send these little messages over 9600 baud, and the whole thing kind of worked. And then one day a significant element of this system died, and I realized I would either have to pay probably many hundreds of dollars to replace this unit or do something else. So I decided I would upgrade to Radio Raw 2. And this was right around the time that we were getting Hubitat off the ground and we were getting the hub first up and running. And so I took the training from Lutron and upgraded the system from classic Radio Raw to Raw 2, which is a much more modern system. It uses a telnet interface just like Caseta does. And so very quickly that older integration gave way to what we have now in the way of a Lutron integration that uses telnet to communicate. It still does the same basic approach. It creates virtual devices that are stand-ins for the devices that are the real Lutron devices, and it works very, very well. The Raw 2 dimmers don't have this problem with Caseta. They're more classic dimmers. They have just a single button you push and LEDs that go up and down the side, and they'll come on to the same level you turn them off, that they were on before you turn them off. But quite frankly, we never touch dimmers around here. We never use light switches. I can't think of any light switch in our house that we ever use. Everything's either Pico, Alexa, or automated. There's maybe one keypad that my wife uses once in a blue moon to turn on some lights, but it's rare. Otherwise, everything is just either automated or done with voice or Picos. We got a handful of Picos around the house. So that's my story about Lutron.
Perfect. Well, and I'm getting backed up in the forums is that you can set cassettes per the mode that you want. You set level and it goes right to that level. But nonetheless, I get it. This was something I didn't know. In fact, when you and I were talking about the Caseta stuff, I came from a Control 4 system where the dimmers did exactly that. When you press the top button, they went to the level you set it to, and then but it wasn't always going to go back to the last level. To me, I think that's kind of ridiculous. If I set the last level to 1%, I want the thing to not turn to 1%. I want it to go up. I'll dim it down to 1%, or I'll set it in automation. But I guess that's really the heart of our discussion is the fact that do it in automation. Don't use switches or dimmers. That's what automation is about. All right. Well, I don't know. Was that an argument? It was close to it. I think we got there. All right. Well, hey, we're nearing the end of the show, so let's take a look at some of the questions in the live chat here. I will see what we can do to answer your questions here. Let's see. Anthony Robbins asked. He said he needs some help setting up the weather tile in dashboard. He says he's missing something. So I'm going to see if I can switch over real quick here. I'm going to show you probably what you're missing. Anthony, what you're going to need to do is you're going to need to install a device called Open Weather Map. And so I already have one installed on my system, so I'll just show you what it is. It's down here. The type is Open Weather Map. So all you got to do is add a virtual device, set the type to Open Weather Map, populate the information. You'll need an Open API Weather Key. Of course, you could probably just borrow mine there if you saw it on the screen long enough. And then that will give you a weather device that you can actually go in and set that up on your dashboard. So that should work for you there. Just make sure you're seeing the settings on your screen, and you'll be good to go there. So hopefully that answers that question. Let's see what else we got here. And by the way, thanks for your questions. Fulian asked, has there been any update in compatibility with Nest? I think we've mentioned this before on some other shows. Nest has ended their Works with Nest program. As of August, there will be no means to connect to them. There are rumors that they will have something through the Google Home integration, but there is no way for us to get reviewed. So we've been in review since probably May of last year, and it's just not going to happen. So there are some community versions of it that will work probably up until August, but we're hoping to hear something from Google as to how we might be able to trigger routines or maybe get some information about Nest products back to Hubitat. But for now, no. Unfortunately, that's their decision. Ryan Mellish asking if anyone knows what time it is. I know that's a reference to the roll machine thing, but appreciate the question.
Time is 6:29 p.m.
There it is. We got it. It worked, Bruce. I don't know if you heard that, but we got it. I don't know.
Yeah. I fixed the bug while we were chatting. So.
That's how good Bruce is. He's just fixing bugs right now. Let's see, what else? Mike Gallego asked, sorry if I messed up your name there. I understand why switches need neutrals. Are there any new tech coming out for older homes? Well, the Lutron Caseta dimmers don't need a neutral, so that's one option for you. I believe Inovelli is going to have a dimmer that's not going to require a neutral. I don't know a whole lot about it. Mike, do you know anything about it by chance?
I've got them, but I haven't had a chance to play around with them yet.
Awesome. So
The problem without neutrals is that they get really, really picky about LEDs. You know, there's going to be no fix for that.
Yeah, I found that in my house too. Is I had to swap out a bunch of LEDs because they would never turn off. They go down to like 1%, and there's just a lot of bleed through depending on the device here. Let's see what else. Steve B asked, "What are the Hubitat team? What are the Hubitat team? What do we use for TTS and notifications?" Well, I use my Sonoses. I know you've got the Google integration there, Mike.
I use both Sonos and Chromecast.
Yes, you've got the Chromecast stuff. Bruce, you're just are you doing the Sonos or?
Mostly Sonos, although I do have one.
By the way, the mic's off. To turn it back on.
One of these devices I don't really like very much, but I have one of those.
There's
Here's today's tip: don't pick up your Google Mini.
But we all use the built-in TTS engine that gives you a handful of voices that you can choose from in the settings. And just a little point to note, you do need an internet connection to generate the first TTS. But after that, if that message is repeated any time, it's going to load it locally from the hub. So it's cached locally. Let's see, what else do we have here? Eric, thanks for the clarification on the Lutron. It was effective Monday and it was 75. Solomon asked, how do you opt out of, or how can I opt into SMS messages after opting out accidentally? I don't know. That's something I would recommend reaching out to support. We'll have to dig into that. Once you've opted out, I assume we can probably do something behind the scenes to get you.
Patrick, we're going to have some interesting news about SMS coming up with our next release. We'll be creating some new capabilities around it.
Okay. Yep.
So stay tuned.
Sounds good. Let's see. Hi, Helena B. Glad you made it. Any other questions here? Ryan Mellish asked a question. Any merit to the theory of heat causing hub crashes? Well, yes, if you have excessive heat, it will cause the hub to shut down. I'm not sure there's anything else we can do about that, but we do recommend that it be in a room temperature, environment there. So the hub itself will generate heat, but for the most part, unless it's like in direct sunlight or in like a small enclosed area that doesn't get decent airflow, it should be fine.
Well, don't place the hub on top of a piece of hot electronics.
That too, yeah. Let's see. Yes, Eric, Google did announce something about their local integration API. It's in developer preview, so that's about all I can say about it. We'll see. We're still working on. I know it's been a highly asked thing in the community about Alexa. I apologize for saying that word, so cancel if anybody's device is out there. But the Amazon integration with sensors, we're working on that as well. So look for some announcement hopefully shortly on that. Mike, question from Mike 3Y321. Been bugging everybody on the forums lately. Any chance to get a driver for the EcoLink devices? They duplicate messages. You know anything about that, Mike?
I think we're looking at that.
Okay. Awesome. And Anthony had swapped to Ecobee. He's very happy with it. I have 2 Ecobees myself. Let's see. JNP.
Echo B or Echo Link?
No, Echo B. That was completely unrelated, probably to the Nest thing.
Right.
Since he was the one who asked about Nest. Let's see. Love to see a more elaborate lock manager app. Yeah. Well, the reality is we certainly would love to see.
I'd like to see a more elaborate one too.
Yeah. I'd love to see what the community could come up with it too. We've talked about internally some enhancements to Lock Code Manager, and we know there's some extra features that people may want. But there's some things you can do right now that it's very hard to do on other platforms. But boy, if we could fix everything in a short amount of time, we certainly would. But it takes time, and it takes energy, and it takes people. So, if there's anybody out there in the community who just goes, yeah, I'd love to write that, talk to us. We'll be happy to help you in some way, shape, or form. But we're a good 5 minutes over our allotted time here, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up and say thanks to everybody in the community, and thank you for joining us on Hubitat Live.
6:35 p.m.
Please join us 2 weeks again from tonight. We'll have another Hubitat Live. Also, the show will be available. I'm way behind on the last couple shows due to a technical difficulty on my end. I will try to find some time to get those up, but they will be up live at hubitat.com. And then you can download that where you can get all the other podcasts, iTunes, Google Podcasts, all that fun stuff. And as always, join us in our community at community.hubitat.com, our official Facebook group. Again, to Bruce and Mike for joining us tonight, and behind those scenes that are all helping us, with this live production. And if you'd like to be a guest on Hubitat Live, drop me a note in the community or email me at patrick@hubitat.com. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.